Hello everyone, and in today's video, we're going to be learning about functions and lambdas. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. We must start by asking ourselves, what are functions and how do they work? Well, functions are like little machines. They take in input, they act on them, and then they produce outputs for the most part. In Python, we define these with the def keyword, followed by the function's name. In parentheses, its arguments. And then a colon followed by whatever the function does in the body of the function. Now, let's start off with a simple example. A function that multiplies by 2, which takes in, obviously, a number as an input. Now, in Python, whenever we want to output a value, we use the return keyword. And then we, after it, whatever we want to return. So, number times 2. Now, if we try to run this though, nothing's going to happen because we might have created a function, but we have not yet used the function, or as we would call it, called the function. We do this by typing the function's name followed by parentheses in which we have to specify all the arguments. Now, you have to be careful since if a function has one argument, then you have to provide one argument. You can't provide more than that or less. Now we can take this value and print it, and we can see that it works just fine. Now, sometimes you'll want that function to have a default value. For example, maybe if there's no number put into this, we want it to just use the number 0. This can be useful since maybe there won't be a value to put in, and this way we won't get an error. Now, all we need to do for this is add a little bit of an equal sign and then equal to whatever you want the default value to be. This way, we can see that if we do this a couple times, the last time we won't put anything in, we'll get our results, and then for the last one, we'll get the result as if we had instead put in 0. This can be really useful. Now, let's see a few examples. Let's make a function that returns only names that start with A. And then we're going to take in names. Now, one thing is we don't know how many names we're going to get, right? Somebody could put in 1 name into this. They could put in 10. They could put in 100. So how many arguments do we need? Well, Python has this really useful method where we can put a star and then let's say names. Now, what this will do is it will make it so that we will get all the arguments that are put in as an array that will be called names. This is really useful since this could have however many items, and this is easier for us to loop through. So, for example, from the techniques from last video, we can make a loop. We can loop through each name in name. And then we can see if name the first element, the first character of the string of each name is equal to is A, then we will print it. Now let's try that out. And then notice we can just put in whatever names we want. Let's say Albert, Bob, Robert, Alicia, and let's say Tom. Now, if we run this, we will, we need to have this uppercase. And then we'll get the names that start with A. This is something that's really useful about functions, that we can use them multiple times. We can run this with different people. Maybe we only have two people this time. And Gary. And it will work both times. Now, another useful thing about functions is that if you have a lot of code, it can help simplify it, as then you can take out bits and pieces, and instead of having all your code as one large blob, it'll be separated into functions that have names so that you'll be able to understand what they do. Now, in Python, there are also these things called lambdas, which are like really small, one-use, like short-term, anonymous functions. We can make a lambda, we can just call it n, or let's just call it f, and we can use the keyword lambda, and then what we'll put here is the arguments, colon, and then the function, which will be returned. So let's say we put a colon a times a plus 10. Now, this is just like a function. We can do f of 5, and we'll get out our result. Now, while this might not seem like it's all that useful, this just seems like a fancy and more complicated way to write out functions. And besides, when would we need to make such a basic function anyways? Well, there are many uses, and one interesting thing we can do with this is we can make a function. Let's just call it def, and then add function, creator, let's say, and then we can have our addend, and then what we can do is we can return a lambda, which is interesting. So that means we're returning that this function returns a function, and we can have this as, let's say, a plus addend. So this means that we can create multiple new functions that are tailor-made. So we can, for example, we can create plus 2 equals add function creator 2. And we can now use this. And we get our value. And notice we can make multiple of these now that we have this set up. And we can print each of these. As so. Now, this is really useful, and especially in more complicated scenarios, this can be really crucial in making simple and easy to understand code. Thank you for watching this video, and remember to like and subscribe.